Picture this, the summit of K2, a triumphant photo, millions of likes. But while you're looking at that smiling client, who's standing just out of frame, in the world of high-altitude mountaineering, there's a cast of invisible people. For them, the death zone isn't some extreme vacation. It's a grueling daily job. They carry your ambitions on their shoulders, but their names rarely make it into the history books. In the summer of 2025, the Savage Mountain claimed one of their very best, forcing us all to ask, what is the true cost of someone else's dream? So, buckle up. We're taking you to the place where superhumans are born. There's a place on this planet where children are born with thin air in their blood. And that's not a metaphor. It's the village of Sadpara in Pakistan's Skardu district, squeezed between giant 8,000-meter peaks. This is the true cradle of high-altitude climbers, the primary supplier of superhumans for the entire world of mountaineering. This is where they're raised, the ones whose names are later whispered with reverence at base camps. Think of Ali Sadpara, a legend forged in these harsh lands. But this story is about another son of this place. His name is Iftikhar Hussain. For him, like for hundreds of other boys, the choice of a path in life is an illusion. No one asks what he wants to be when he grows up. His future has already been decided by geography, by altitude, and by necessity. School, university, an office job in the city, those are words from another universe. His universe is a vertical one, a world of slopes, glaciers, and lethal altitude. Here, mountaineering isn't some hobby for wealthy thrill seekers. It's not a sport. It's a job, a tough, dangerous job, but it's the only one that can feed a family, the only one that offers their children a chance at something more. Like everyone in Sadpara, Iftikhar absorbs this knowledge from childhood. He watches the fathers and older brothers as they head up the slopes. He sees their weather-beaten faces, their powerful shoulders carrying someone else's gear. And he sees the hollow look in the eyes of the families whose men never returned. The mountains are his school, his office, and his judge. And then his day comes. Iftikhar is no longer just a spectator. He pulls on heavy boots, tightens the straps of an old rucksack, and for the first time, his name is added to the list. He becomes part of the brotherhood they call HAPS, High Altitude Porters, here at the foot of the Karakoram, High Altitude Porter. But don't let that simple title fool you. A HAP isn't just a carrier. They're the elite, the special forces of this world of ice. To join their ranks, you have to be born here, in Sadpara, breathing this thin air from the moment you're born. It's not enough to just have muscles of steel. You need to read the signs the mountain gives only to its own, like how the color of the snow changes before an avalanche, or the way the wind whistles through the crags, signaling a storm. Iftikhar learns fast. His job is a form of alchemy, transforming someone else's dream into reality. For a client from Europe or America, he and his companions are basically magicians. You're fighting for every breath, struggling to take a single step at 7,000 meters. And then, Iftikhar strolls past you with a smile, carrying 40 kilograms of gear on his back, tents, food, oxygen cylinders. You finally stumble into camp, and your tent is already pitched. You reach an ice wall, and the ropes are already securely fixed. He's the shadow that walks ahead to light your way. He fixes ropes over bottomless crevasses, finds a safe path through an icefall that's become unrecognizable overnight. And he does all this in a place where there's barely enough oxygen just to exist, where your mind slows to a crawl, and every single move demands a colossal effort. But there's an unwritten rule, one you absorb with the very air you breathe up here. You are invisible. You are the architect of someone else's triumph, whose name will never make the headlines. The client is the one who stands on the summit. Their photo will flash across global media. Magazines will write about their courage. And Iftikhar, at best, he'll make it into a group photo at base camp, a nameless figure in the background. For him, the summit is the completed contract. His reward is the money he brings home, so his children can eat their fill. His own ambitions, the desire to stand on that peak himself and see the world from the height of the gods, all of that takes a back seat the moment a contract is signed. Iftikhar accepts these rules. He doesn't rebel, doesn't complain, that's the game. He knows that to climb the mountain for himself one day, he first has to climb it for others, dozens of times over. His job is to be the foundation upon which someone else's flag is planted. Year after year, season after season, Iftikhar hones his craft, turning it into an art form. The name Iftikhar becomes a kind of password within the tight-knit circle of expedition leaders. When the most difficult ascent is being planned and someone asks, "Who's going to carry the oxygen through the bottleneck?" the answer often comes in a whisper: "Talk to Iftikhar." You don't Google his name. You won't find him on Instagram. He doesn't blog about his adventures. He's a ghost in the digital world, where every step up the mountain is live streamed. His records aren't in the record books, because his greatest record is the number of people who came home alive because of him. His name isn't a brand, it's a guarantee of quality, passed by word of mouth like an old legend. And he chooses an arena to match, not Everest with its well-oiled commercial conveyor belt. His domain is the wild, untamed giants of the Karakoram, K2 and Broad Peak. Mountains with a temper, mountains that don't forgive mistakes. K2, the savage mountain, a peak that takes more than it gives. He learns these slopes not from maps, but with his feet. He knows where the glacier breathes, releasing its deadly seracs, where the rocks are alive, ready to crumble at a single wrong move. He becomes a living map, a walking encyclopedia of the planet's most dangerous 8,000ers. Clients don't pay him for pretty photos for their sponsors. They pay for this intimate, almost mystical knowledge of the mountain. They hire his quiet confidence, his ability to navigate where GPS devices go haywire. And so, he becomes the perfect workhorse of siege-style mountaineering. Imagine the intricate mechanism of a Swiss watch. You have the bright face and the shining hands. Those are the clients. And then there's Iftikhar, the unseen, essential gear deep inside, without which the entire mechanism would simply grind to a halt. For weeks, month after month, he's hauling gear between the camps, setting fixed ropes, laying the groundwork for the final push. It's grueling, relentless work, pushing the very limits of human endurance. While the others are acclimatizing, resting, building their strength, he's making dozens of shuttle runs into the death zone, up and down, again and again. By 2025, this monumental effort has forged him into something extraordinary. He's approaching 40, an age when most climbers start to slow down. But Iftikhar, he's at his absolute peak. His body has become a finely tuned instrument, forged by the mountains themselves. Lungs conditioned to function on the barest whisper of oxygen. A heart, trained by years of punishing strain, beats steady and strong in a place where others would be hammering out of their chests. His physiology is the product of natural selection, honed to perfection. He isn't just strong, he's efficient. Every movement is precise, economical. Every calorie burned with purpose. He has become the mountain personified, silent, dependable, and unbelievably powerful. The summer of 2025 in the Karakoram carries the scent of disaster. It's not just a feeling, it's something physical in the thin air itself. It's as if the mountains themselves are sick, running a fever. The region is being battered by brutal temperature swings. During the day, a merciless sun melts the glaciers at an unprecedented rate, turning what were solid trails just yesterday into raging torrents of ice and water. Then at night, a sudden deep freeze locks all that water in place, creating treacherous traps where there was solid footing just hours before. The rock, saturated with meltwater, becomes as brittle as glass. The atmosphere is thick, heavy. There's a tension in the air so palpable you could almost reach out and touch it. And then the bad news starts to trickle in. First, from Nanga Parbat, the killer mountain. Then from Layla Peak, renowned for its near-perfect but lethally dangerous spire. Short, broken transmissions over the radio, which quickly grow into grim stories back at base camp. A snapped rope, a sudden wet slab avalanche, a misstep on a technical pitch. The details change, but the outcome is always the same. The neighboring giants have begun to claim their tragic toll. The climbing community, normally a scattered tribe, is now bound together by a shared sense of dread. In the evenings, a new phrase is whispered from tent to tent: Black July. That's the name the journalists gave it, and it stuck. The ice conditions on every route are becoming completely unpredictable. Glaciers that have been stable for decades are suddenly shifting. Routes that were set just yesterday are gone today, wiped out or buried under debris. And this is where we find the central paradox of modern mountaineering. Nature is screaming, "Get out!" But the business of climbing whispers, "You have to go." Climbing permits are paid for months in advance. Sponsorship deals are locked in. Clients have trained for years and spent small fortunes to be here. To call off the expedition is to admit defeat, not to the mountain, but to the balance sheet. And so, the commercial machine, creaking and groaning with apprehension, keeps grinding forward. Nobody wants to be the one to call it quits, to be the first to turn their team around and head down the mountain, losing money and reputation. Everyone's just looking at each other, waiting for someone else to crack first. Iftikhar sees it all. He catches snippets of conversation, the anxious looks exchanged between clients and their guides. More than anyone, he can feel the mountain breathe. He sees the microfractures in the glacier that no tourist would ever spot. He hears the deep rumble coming from within the icefall. He knows the mountain isn't happy, but his job is to lead the way. While the others are debating the risks over hot tea, he's silently checking his gear, every carabiner, every ice screw. Tomorrow, he heads up again, onto the slopes of K2. His job is to fix the ropes along a route that might have already changed beyond recognition. He's the cog that has to keep turning, even when the entire machine is about to fall to pieces. His expedition is a true bauble on the Baltoro Glacier. Dozens of tents, flags from every nation, the hum of generators, and a constant mix of languages. But all that commotion stays down below, in base camp. Up on the slope, the atmosphere is entirely different. The goal is Chogori, or K2, 8,611 meters of pure, unfiltered challenge. In the world of mountaineering, Everest is the queen, holding court for the masses. But K2 is a savage, untamed tyrant who alone decides who is worthy to approach its throne, and it's rarely in a good mood. The route is a classic, the Abruzzi Spur. This isn't a quick summit push, it's a methodical siege. Imagine building a ladder to the sky, one step at a time. First, Camp 1, then Camp 2, Camp 3. Each camp is a tiny island of safety that has to be carved out, secured, and stocked with supplies. In this complex operation, Iftikhar is a crucial piece of the puzzle. He's not just a guide, he's the one who leads from the front, the one who breaks trail, responsible for every step of the 3 foreign climbers on his rope team. For his clients, this is the adventure of a lifetime. They're young, strong, their eyes burning with ambition. They've spent years saving money, training to the point of exhaustion, and now, finally, they're here. They see the objective. They're ticking boxes on their checklist. Acclimatization rotation, done. Climb to Camp 1 and back, done. Everything is going according to plan. For them, the mountain is a series of altitudes and technical sections to be conquered. They see the summit. Iftikhar sees the mountain, the whole mountain. He feels its mood in the crunch of the snow under his crampons, in the way the ice changes color at sunset. Right now, they're at the very beginning of the route, on the lower sections of the summit pyramid. The work is steady, almost routine. Sun, frost, and a ringing silence, broken only by the crunch of their steps and the sound of their own breathing. At this stage, K2 still lets you play by your own rules. The route is clear, the dangers predictable. A falling rock, a crevasse in the ice. It's all familiar, all part of the job. Nothing here screams of an anomaly, of the disaster they're whispering about down below. It feels like Black July is just a ghost story told in base camp. Up here, everything seems normal, business as usual, but Iftikhar knows, the illusion of control is the most insidious enemy in the mountains. They're on a minute-by-minute schedule, every departure, every traverse, all meticulously planned. But somewhere up there, high overhead, beyond the infamous Black Pyramid and the deadly bottleneck, a whole different game awaits. And the mountain has yet to make its first move. July 18th, 4 in the morning. The air is razor sharp and so thin, each breath is a deliberate act. Headlamps cut through the darkness, casting distorted shadows on the ice, transforming the familiar terrain into an alien landscape. Iftikhar's team sets out. Silence. No grand send-off. Just the crunch of crampons on the fern and the muffled jingle of carabiners. This isn't a triumphant start. It's the beginning of a long, hard grind. Their goal for today, Camp 1 at around 6,000 meters. A straightforward, routine climb. For Iftikhar, this route is a book he's read 100 times. He knows every crevasse, every treacherous outcrop, every rock that could come loose when the afternoon sun starts to soften the ice. He leads the way, not just breaking trail, but listening to the mountain. His movements are measured, efficient, not a wasted step, not a hurried gesture. He is the metronome, setting the pace for the entire rope team. He feels the tension on the rope behind him, hears his client's breathing, picking up on the slightest signs of fatigue or hesitation. His eyes scan the slope, not for beauty, but for threats. In his world, there's no room for romance. There is only physics, gravity, and experience. But for the three climbers behind him, it's a different story entirely. They're brimming with energy, their movements eager. Every photo they take is an attempt to capture a piece of this moment. They see the steps leading to their dream, an ice fall to cross, a slope to climb. Mentally, they're checking off boxes. Left base camp, check. Crossing the glacier, check. They place their trust in Iftikhar completely, the way passengers trust their pilot. What they don't realize is that their guide is noticing things they can't. A subtle shift in the color of the snow on a distant ridge, a sign of strengthening winds higher up. A barely perceptible tremor from the glacier underfoot, a living thing with a life all its own, invisible to them. The glacier beneath their feet is no simple path. It's a frozen, yet breathing river, stretching for dozens of kilometers, and it's riddled with traps. Deep crevasses, hidden by a thin blanket of snow, can swallow a person whole in the blink of an eye. Iftikhar is guiding them along the only safe route, one established by the Sherpas a week ago. But he knows the glacier changes by the hour. What was a solid snow bridge yesterday could be the edge of a chasm today. The weather is perfect, the window is open. But in the mountains, this kind of perfection is always unsettling. It's the calm. The team is making good time, right on schedule. This is just the opening move, the simplest one, in the intricate game they're playing against K2. And for now, the mountain is content to let them place their pieces on the board. But the board beneath their feet is always changing. The chaotic jumble of the icefall is behind them now. Ahead, the slope steepens, becoming perfectly smooth, as if shaped by an invisible hand. The altitude, 5,700 meters. On paper, that's just a half-kilometer climb from base camp. For an athlete at sea level, that's an easy jog. But the mountains just laugh at human arithmetic. Every meter up here is a different kind of physics, a different reality. This is a zone climbers call technically challenging, but relatively predictable. The air still has enough oxygen, your head is clear, and the high-altitude euphoria hasn't started to fog your judgment yet. And that's the biggest trap of all. Here, on this stretch, the danger isn't coming from inside your own body, from your lungs, desperately searching for oxygen. It's looming right over your head. Picture giant, overhanging balconies of ice, the size of apartment buildings, held in place by nothing more than a prayer. These are seracs. During the day, the sun, even the winter sun, acts like a blowtorch. It eats away at the base of these giants, and the ice that seemed like an eternal monolith begins to live a life of its own. It groans, it cracks, it breathes. Iftikhar knows this. He isn't looking down at his feet. He's scanning the slope above. His ear isn't tuned to the upbeat chatter of the clients, but to the quiet groan of the ice, a sound that a camera's microphone can't pick up, and a tourist, drunk on the sheer beauty of it all, would never hear. He sees the sun hitting one of the ice fangs high above. The clock is ticking. For the rest of the group, this is a perfect moment. The whole world is laid out at their feet. Below, the glacier snakes its way through the valley, and ahead lies a clear, sun-drenched path to Camp 1. They feel strong. They're riding a wave of adrenaline. They've cleared the first major obstacle, and now it feels as if the mountain itself has welcomed them. They stop to take more pictures, laughing and pointing out distant peaks to one another. But safety at this altitude is a dangerous illusion. It's a sweet poison that lulls your vigilance to sleep. They're standing on a massive theatrical stage, but they don't realize the set itself could come crashing down at any second. They only see the next step on the path. Iftikhar sees the entire, multi-dimensional chess match, where a single wrong move from above can wipe every piece off the board. And in that moment, there's a sound. Not a deafening roar, but a dry, sharp crack, like a giant bone snapping in two. It comes from somewhere high above, and to the right. Everyone instinctively looks up. For a second, it seems like nothing's happening. It was just a sound. But then, one of the shadows on the slope, motionless until now, begins to move. It isn't rolling. It's flowing, gathering speed with every fraction of a second. This isn't an avalanche. It's a serac collapse. This isn't powder and snow. It's thousands of tons of compacted ice and rock hurtling downwards. The trap has snapped shut, and it isn't a roar. It's the sound of silence, falling from the sky. A silence that lasts for an eternity, but, in reality, for no longer than a single heartbeat. The human brain refuses to process what the eyes are seeing. What was an immutable part of the mountain, a monolithic slab the size of an office building, is simply detaching and beginning its own silent, terrible dance of descent. 1 second, then another, and then the silence is shattered by a low, visceral rumble. It's a sound you don't just hear, you feel it. It travels up through the soles of your boots, vibrates in your very bones, and makes your heart freeze with a primal kind of fear. The watch on one climber's wrist reads 2:30 in the afternoon. In that moment, for them, time stands still. An avalanche doesn't care about heroes. Every instinct in Iftikhar's body is screaming at him to run. But where can he go? To his left, a sheer wall of ice. To his right, a chasm hidden by the clouds. And down, well, down is exactly where this unstoppable force is already headed. All his knowledge, his immense experience, it's useless now. He can read a glacier like an open book, predict the weather from the slightest shift in the clouds, but he can't defy the laws of gravity. He watches as a collapsed serac slams into the slope, kicking up a gigantic wave of snow. This isn't just falling ice anymore. It's a full-blown avalanche, and it's hurtling right for them. And then he sees it. A white wall. It's growing right before his eyes, devouring the sky, the sun, every color in the world, leaving only a blinding, roaring whiteness. In a moment like this, there's no time to think, no time for goodbyes. There's only the raw instinct to brace yourself, to drive your ice axe into the slope, to do anything, but it's like trying to stop a freight train with your bare hands. Every skill, all the preparation, the thousands of hours spent on the mountain, it all means nothing now. Physics is unforgiving. Against a torrent of compressed snow and ice moving at the speed of a car, a person doesn't stand a chance. The rope that was their lifeline just a minute ago, a symbol of teamwork and safety, instantly becomes an anchor, dragging them down. Nature makes no distinction between an experienced guide and a client laying eyes on an 8,000er for the very first time. It simply takes all four of them. The first impact hits like a battering ram, knocking the air from their lungs and sweeping them off their feet. Their world flips upside down. Sky and earth trade places. There is no up, no down, just a violent churning vortex of ice and snow. With a deafening roar, the torrent rips them from the mountainside, tearing them from their root like autumn leaves from a branch. They're no longer climbers conquering a peak. They are merely specks in a roaring white ocean, dragged down into a cold, deafening unknown. And then, just as suddenly as it began, the roaring stops. An overwhelming, ringing silence takes its place, the kind of quiet you only find high in the mountains, in the aftermath of an avalanche. The world, which was a torrent of chaos just moments ago, is now frozen into a still, broken landscape. Everywhere, there are just piles of ice boulders and densely packed snow. It's as if a giant hand just shuffled a deck of cards and dealt everyone their fate. And in this cruel lottery, the odds were horrifically skewed. One by one, 3 of them emerge from the white prison, the foreign climbers. They're alive. It's the first thing that registers in their hazy minds. They're breathing, broken ribs, dislocated joints, a profound shock that's keeping the full extent of the pain at bay. But they are on the surface. The avalanche dragged them for hundreds of meters, but somehow, at the very last second, it spat them out onto the top. They're coughing up snow, struggling to focus. Instinctively, their eyes scan for the 4th person. Where's their guide? Where's Iftikhar? They look around, and a chilling void opens up inside them. The rope, their shared lifeline, is pulled taut and leads to nowhere, disappearing into the thick blanket of snow. Iftikhar Hussein is gone. He was the first on the rope, leading the way, forging the path, and he took the full, crushing force of the icy battering ram. The avalanche didn't spit him out onto the surface. It swallowed him whole, burying him under a multi-ton shroud of ice and snow. In a single instant, the expert guide who knew this mountain like the back of his hand was simply gone. In the thin air, their shouts are swallowed by the glacier's indifferent silence. Stunned, they can only stare at the spot where their guide lies buried beneath the snow. The full horror of their situation sinks in. They have neither the strength nor the specialized gear to even begin a search. Trying to dig here, at this altitude, with bare hands or an ice axe. It's like trying to empty the ocean with a spoon. It would be suicide. Their only chance is to descend, to get down to advanced base camp for help, immediately. Their own lives are hanging by a thread. Every step down is a battle against the pain, and the crushing knowledge that they're leaving the man who saved them behind. For the three climbers, the mountain was a brutal test they had miraculously survived. For Iftikhar Hussein, it had become his final resting place. And then they appear at the edge of advanced base camp. They look less like people and more like ghosts, sculpted from snow and pain. They're shaking, barely able to stand. The words tumbling from their lips aren't sentences, just broken fragments that seem to freeze in the air. Avalanche, Iftikhar, he's up there, under the snow. It's enough. In the expedition leader's tent, a radio crackles to life. The burst of static carries the most dreaded sound you can hear in the mountains across the glacier. Further down, at the main base camp, the message shatters the routine atmosphere like a bolt of lightning. Here, in the relative safety of 5,000 meters, life has a steady rhythm. Some are cooking, others are checking their gear, some are just sipping hot tea and gazing up at the summit. And then, suddenly, everything stops. The message, passed from radio to radio, sounds like a verdict. Avalanche. Sadpara's team. One person missing. And in that moment, something incredible happens. With no orders given, no lengthy discussions, the camp explodes into action, like a shaken beehive. It's the unwritten law of the mountain. When someone's in trouble, you drop everything and you go. It doesn't matter what country you're from or what team you're climbing for. Today it's them, tomorrow it could be you. Iftikhar's colleagues, other Pakistani high-altitude porters, and Sherpas from nearby expeditions, the strongest and best acclimatized people on the mountain, are instantly on their feet. They're grabbing avalanche probes, shovels, ropes, anything that could possibly help. Their faces are set, grim. They aren't just a rescue party, they're going after one of their own. It's a race against time, and everyone here knows the rules of this race are brutally unforgiving. Avalanche survival is a matter of cold, hard math. If you don't dig someone out within the first 15 to 20 minutes, their chances of survival drop to almost zero. Up here, at over 6,000 meters, where every breath is a struggle and every step an effort, minutes shrink down to seconds. Snow, compacted by the avalanche, hardens, becoming as dense as concrete. Finding someone alive in a mass like this isn't just luck, it's a miracle. The rescuers arrive on site. Before them, a giant tongue of icy chaos, tens, hundreds of tons of snow and ice debris. They form a line and begin to methodically probe every inch of the frozen mass. The probe goes in. Another step. Another probe. Hour after hour. The sun slowly sinks toward the horizon, painting the glaciers in crimson tones, and with every ray of the fading sun, hope melts away too. The silence hanging over the glacier grows heavier, more oppressive. Everyone here understands, without a word being spoken, they're no longer searching for a living person. This is no longer a rescue mission. It's a recovery. It's a duty of honor to find their comrade's body, to not leave him to the mountain's eternal keep. The search continues, but its purpose has silently changed. And then, a dull, muffled thud. Not ice, not rock. One of the rescuers freezes. His hand on the probe's handle trembles. It's the signal everyone has been dreading, and yet waiting for. Instantly, the others rush to his side. A few more quick, precise probes around the first point confirm their terrible suspicion. He's here, beneath them. Shovels bite into the compacted mass, but there's no panic in their movements, just heavy, methodical work. Inch by inch, they dig out their comrade, barely breathing from the tension and the thin air. And there, under 5 feet of icy debris, they find him. Iftikhar Hussein. Their eyes meet. No one says a word, but everyone understands. Help is no longer needed. Whether it was the weight of the snow that suffocated him, or a crushing blow from the ice in the first few seconds, it doesn't matter now. The result is the same. July 18th, 2025. This day will forever be etched in the history of Pakistani mountaineering as the day the mountain claimed one of its finest sons. One of the climbers steps aside, grabs his radio, and keys the mic. The voice that crackles over the airwaves from nearly 7,000 meters is calm, but in that calm, there's an abyss of grief. A short, definitive message travels down to the Alpine Club of Pakistan, and from there, to base camp. Relay to base camp, we've found Iftikhar. I repeat, we've found him. Prepare for recovery. The static crackle of the radio in the command tent gives way to a deafening silence, and that silence spreads like a wave throughout the entire camp. People who, just an hour ago, were filled with anxious hope now lower their heads. Conversations stop mid-sentence. Some turn away to hide their emotions. Others just sit on the rocks staring into space. There are no shouts, no sobs. The mountains don't tolerate hysterics. Here, grief is born in silence, inwardly. Every climber knows this fate can await anyone who challenges the peaks, but knowing that doesn't make the loss any less painful. Here, at the foot of this giant, they're all one big family, bound together by a shared mission and a common threat. And today, this family lost one of its own. Grief is a feeling, but duty is action. Sorrow hangs heavy in the air, but the camp begins to stir once more. Now, they face the most difficult and somber task of any expedition, the journey down. They need to prepare an Akja, a special rescue sled, and assemble the strongest, most resilient team for the transport. It's an incredibly difficult and risky job, bringing a body down from this altitude, across treacherous glaciers and steep slopes. But to leave him here, on the mountain, is unthinkable. It's a matter of honor. Iftikhar's ascent is over. But now his comrades must undertake one last, crucial task: to bring him home, to bring him down from the summit that became both his triumph and his final resting place. With the dawn of July 19th, the air in the mountains shifts. The sorrow of the night gives way to the resolve of the day. Down below, back in civilization, a complex machine is already in motion. This is no longer a private effort by friends and colleagues, but a mission on a national scale. At the helm of this mission, already being called the Mission of Mercy, is General Irfan Arshad, the president of the Alpine Club of Pakistan. His word is law, and his order is simple and clear. Bring Iftikhar home, no matter the cost. The Army's air wing is called in, the Askari Aviation Squadron. Their pilots aren't just flyers, they are true aces of the sky, accustomed to pushing the limits of both man and machine. For a helicopter pilot, this isn't just a flight. It's a dance on the edge of an abyss. The thin air barely supports the heavy machine. The treacherous winds of the Karakoram could slam it into the cliffs at any moment. Every maneuver here, at an altitude of nearly 6,000 meters, is calculated down to the millimeter. One wrong move, and there will be more than one tragedy. But no one hesitates. This isn't a routine flight. It's the highest honor a nation can pay its hero, and a duty of honor for everyone involved. And then, over the glacier where the small team of climbers waits with their precious cargo, a steel dragonfly appears. The roar of the rotors shatters the ringing silence, sending swirls of snow into the air. The helicopter can't land. It hovers just a few meters above the surface, balancing in the unstable air currents. It's an incredible sight, the power of modern technology challenging the raw power of nature. The team on the ground moves with precision and speed, like a single organism. There's no time to waste. They carefully attach the Akja, carrying Iftikhar's body, to a special line. A wave of a hand, and the winch begins its work. These are Iftikhar's final moments on the slopes of K2. Slowly, almost ceremoniously, he is lifted into the sky, leaving the place where his journey ended. The mountain that claimed his life now releases his body. The helicopter, having secured its priceless cargo, turns smoothly and sets a course for Skardu. There, at the military hospital, everything is ready for his arrival. The formalities have to be observed, and every step is taken with the deepest respect. The family receives the official word. The mission of mercy, set in motion at the highest levels, is finally over. The mountains have released their hold, allowing one of their own a final farewell with those who loved him. In Skardu, the farewell ceremony is carried out with military precision and restraint. Here, at the base, Iftikhar is a national hero, and he's sent off with all the honors he's due. But the moment the procession leaves the city and starts up the narrow mountain road toward his home village, the official ceremony ends. And something else begins. A different story entirely, personal, profound, and almost silent. The The vehicle inches its way up the winding road, and it feels as if the mountains themselves, these ancient gray giants, are bowing their peaks in a final salute, seeing one of their own suns home. The air is different here. It doesn't smell of jet fuel and hurried activity, but of wild herbs, melting snow, and eternity. The silence in the village of Sadpara is unique. It's not the absence of sound, but a tense anticipation of it. Today that silence is thick, heavy, like the air before a storm. Everyone knows. News in the mountains travels faster than any messaging app, passed from one heart to another. And then, a vehicle appears at the edge of the village. The engine cuts out, and the only sound that breaks the stillness is the creak of a door opening. The heart of the village stops. This isn't just the return of a body. It's the homecoming of a soul. From every home, people emerge, the elderly, leaning on their walking sticks, men with weathered, stern faces, women clutching their shawls, and children who don't yet fully grasp the scale of the tragedy, but can feel the collective grief hanging in the air. They don't speak. They just stand and watch. There's no curiosity in their eyes, only compassion and a quiet sorrow. The procession forms spontaneously, without any command or direction. Dozens, then hundreds of people fall in, creating a living river that flows slowly through the narrow lanes. The only sounds are the low murmur of prayers, a masculine hum that blends with the shuffle of hundreds of feet on the stony ground, and the restrained, piercing cries of the women, a sound that feels sharp enough to split the very rocks. For them, this is a familiar ritual, the bitter price they pay for the life they've chosen, for the passion that runs in their veins. Everyone here knows a family that has lost someone to the icy embrace of the 8,000ers. Iftikhar isn't being buried as a victim of an accident, but as a warrior who fell at his post. His battlefield wasn't a flat plain, but a vertical wall of ice and rock. His weapons were an ice axe and an unbreakable will. He was one of them, the best of them, and he died doing what he lived for. A place in the small village cemetery is already waiting for him. It sits on a hillside, overlooking the valley and the very same peaks that have called to him since he was a boy. His grave will join a somber row, becoming another line in the stone ledger of this place, a climber's graveyard. Here lie those who challenged the heavens and became a part of them forever. The story of Iftikhar's life, which began at the foot of these mountains, now finds its end in their shadow. The circle is complete. As a quiet prayer echoes through the Karakoram Mountains, halfway across the world, screens are lighting up. On July 19th, the name Iftikhar Hussain appears in the global news for the very first time. But this isn't some grand, heroic debut. It's just a single line in a flood of breaking news alerts, a brief flash in the digital static. The news of the tragedy on K2 spreads like an avalanche. And just like an avalanche, it buries the details, twisting the story until it's completely unrecognizable. And so, the confusion begins, the kind of chaos that's all too common in our fast-paced world, where getting it first matters more than getting it right. In the headlines of international media, his name, unfamiliar to the Western ear, starts to get lost. It gets jumbled in with the names of other climbers, especially the female European athletes who also lost their lives. Their stories are more familiar, more relatable, louder. And this is where things take a turn into the truly absurd, almost grotesque. Automated news aggregators, these soulless machines, make a clumsy, careless error. They see an unfamiliar name next to the names of women, and, without a second thought, they misgender him. For a moment, Iftikhar, a strong, resilient man, the pride of his village, becomes a digital ghost, a nameless Pakistani female climber. His personal story, his heroism, his sacrifice, all of it is buried under an avalanche of splashy headlines about someone else. The world is mourning the wrong person. But amidst this digital chaos, there are islands of truth. These are the niche publications, the ones writing not for clicks, but for the truth. Journalists from Explorer's Web, people who breathe the thin air of high altitudes even from their desks, start sounding the alarm. Methodically, step by step, they piece together the timeline of what actually happened. They separate fact from fiction. And they are the first to ask the most important and most uncomfortable question. A question that changes how we see this entire tragedy. They don't just correct his name and gender. They ask, why was he left behind? And thanks to them, the world suddenly learns that behind every record, behind every beautiful summit photo, there is the invisible labor and immense risk taken by people like Iftikhar, a price paid not for their own glory, but for the ambitions of others. Finally, his home country finds its voice. Pakistani officials, from government ministers to the heads of the Alpine Club, release formal statements. They speak of him as a national treasure, a brave son of their country. These official, carefully chosen words serve as a counterbalance to the media frenzy. They give Iftikhar back his name, his dignity, and his true story. The digital noise slowly begins to fade, and through it, like a chute breaking through concrete, the truth begins to emerge. A story not just of tragedy, but of duty, of honor, and of the price one person pays for another's dream. And this truth, once it finally cuts through the noise, is a harsh one. The 2025 season will go down in history, not just for its records, but for the scars it left on the world of mountaineering. Iftikhar's death isn't just another accident, it's a bright, painful flash of light, illuminating the darkest corners of the sport. He becomes the face of the invisible ones, the hundreds of high-altitude porters whose names rarely make the headlines, but without whom no summit would ever be reached. His story is a stark reminder that behind every client's step upward, there's someone's invisible support, someone's life on the line. And the most terrifying part? This tragedy didn't happen at some extreme altitude, not in the death zone where every breath is a fight for survival. It happened where you'd think the worst was already over. It's the mountain's silent trap. His death underscores a brutal truth about K2. There are no safe zones. Death can be waiting for you at 8,000 meters or right at the base, in the labyrinth of ice that feels like just a prelude to the real ascent. It changes how you see the mountain. Now, anyone who sets foot on its glaciers knows K2 forgives no mistakes, anywhere. In the cold, impartial chronicles of mountaineering, his name is entered as another grim statistic. Journalists are already calling it Black July. And Iftikhar is neither the first nor, tragically, the last name on that grim list. His fate is woven together with others, creating the tragic tapestry of the season. But to a handful of people, he isn't a statistic. For the clients who survived, whose lives he saved with his own, his name is forever etched into their memory. They make their way back down, back to the world, carrying both this weight and this gratitude. They won't be telling their children stories of a conquered summit, but of the man who gave them the chance to see their families again. Meanwhile, far from the icy peaks, in his home village of Sadpara, the very air feels heavier. Here, they don't know him as a hero of K2. They know him as a husband, a father, a son, the family's provider. To the world, he's a symbol. To them, he's an open wound. The mountain didn't just take a mountaineer, it took the bedrock of an entire family, leaving a void that no amount of compensation or posthumous honors can ever fill. And K2 itself, majestic and cold, remains silent. It has no concern for human sorrow. It has witnessed thousands of these stories, and it will witness thousands more. While some mourn the fallen, the next caravan of expeditions is already making its way up. Ambition never sleeps. The mountain is waiting, and yet, something has changed forever. The name Muhammad Iftikhar Hussain is no longer just a line on a list. It has become part of the legend of the Karakoram, an eternal